My name is Brandon Smith. I'm a special ed teacher at Birmingham City Schools in Birmingham, Alabama. My hobby is motorcycles. I like to ride motorcycles, and I like to put motorcycles together from scrap parts. And that's how I ended up knowing all of my friends who now mostly refer to themselves as Haints, but there's more to it than even that. And we all like Waylon Jennings, and we all share a garage called the Dojo.
Tell me about the Haints.
About the Haints? The Haints started, let me give you the abridged version. The Haints started with a guy named Whitey, which is, of course, is his nickname. He used to, his real name is Daniel. And he came over to my basement garage one day, and I was clapping things together, as I typically do, at a much lower level of experience at the time. It was, how long ago was that? Maybe 4 or 5 years ago now?
Oh, wow.
About 5 years ago, and he came with a shirt, and he said, I think we should have this group called the Haints, because Haints means ghost in the South, and before Whitey and I met each other, the only other people you saw on custom bikes in Birmingham, you just basically see them in passing. You basically say, who's that guy? Like, who is that guy? And then you wouldn't see him again for another 2 years. And so basically anyone else that rode anything custom, or anything that was custom in kind of the way we like customs, like real stripped down, real narrow, very few frills kind of bikes, but we, you know, when you see the kind of bike you like, you know when it's going by, and there's like, there were 5 or 6 ghosts, or 5 or 6 Haints running around town, and we would eventually, you know, like I found Whitey in a bookstore, I saw his bike parked outside, and I walked in, and I was like, what's your name? And we immediately met, and we were riding together the next week. And it just kind of happened one at a time. He made these shirts and was like, well, give these to any other Haints you meet, you know? And that was it. So, you know, he gave me this bag of shirts, and I gave one to Nick, and one to Joe Schuster, and a couple other people. And at first I had some hesitancies because I was like, Whitey, this sounds a lot like a club, and I'm not so sure I'm really into this, you know, but I didn't want to be a snob and be like, no, that's a stupid idea. But I think the end result has been really cool. It's been a really positive community where a lot of people have helped each other. A lot more people have gotten on motorcycles, and you know, it basically just gives us all something to do. Some of my tools bounced off the road. I'm pretty well known amongst my friends for losing my tools while I'm traveling. So now I think I'm actually missing some of the Allens I need. But the point in the beginning was not to ride custom bikes at all. I just wanted to ride, you know?
Yeah.
And I got an old Japanese bike because it was the most affordable thing to do, and immediately had to rebuild the cars because it was an old Japanese bike. It was a 4-cylinder bike, so there were 4 carbs. And I met this old mechanic named Mike Baker, who said to me, well, if you're not afraid to tear apart carbs, you shouldn't be afraid to do anything to an engine. And also read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance around there, and, you know, really kind of understood what Pirsig was talking about when he was talking about not really trusting other people with something that's that important to you, and that has to get you that far. And, you know, if you're going to go that far on it, and it's that old an engine, or if it's, I mean, really any kind of engine, but particularly if it's an old engine, you have to you have to know how it works to some extent, because things are going to break and you're going to have to do things yourself on the side of the road. And that's where I cut my teeth mostly, was on the side of the road with that old Yamaha XJ700, I believe it was. It was like a tariff bike from 1985 when the Japanese companies had to start making their bikes smaller, right, to deal with the Harley tax, basically. That being said, I cut my teeth on that, and I took that bike to Texas one summer, the first summer I had it, to go see my family. And I was like, okay, well, I can get to Texas, maybe I can get to California. So the next summer, I went to California on that same bike, and then I bought a 450. I thought, you know, let's try it on a smaller bike. So I bought a 450 Honda. It was, that's a whole story in and of itself, but long story short, I got stuck in Casper, made some friends. A guy let me crash at his house. Finally found a parts place in Minnesota that would have a used U-joint, because otherwise you had to order it from Japan. It was astronomically expensive. But we got a cheap one from Minnesota, and while we were waiting on it to get there, me and this guy and his wife that I had met, we went camping and trout fishing in the Bighorn Mountains. And then came, you know, which is about 3 hours away from Casper, and then we came back down. So it ended up being a really great trip anyway. Yeah. And we got back, I guess, on a Monday afternoon. The part was there. I had the bike put back together by about dusk, and then I took off.
Wow.
And I can't say how many stories I have where I didn't get something put back together until about dark. And then I took off into the dark and rode until I couldn't stand it anymore. That happened on this thing too, twice this summer. Next year I did Vancouver on the 450. That was my biggest trip. That was 4 weeks round trip. Rode from Birmingham to Vancouver, down to Portland, and then back. And I actually spent a week in Portland, so riding it was only 3 weeks. So also did a couple days of backpacking in Waterton National Park in Canada, right across the border from Glacier. Okay. So anyway, that was that trip. That was the biggest one. The next year was a super trip. Next year was the year me and a lot of these guys that I know decided we wanted to go to California to this show called Born Free. It was the second time Born Free was happening, and we decided we'd go out there and see what it was about. And that was a way different experience, because gosh, by the end of the trip, at some points there were almost 9 of us riding together and camping together, and after that experience I almost kind of feel like, you know, I'll still ride by myself, but that was really so much fun that I don't have as much drive to ride by myself. It's so much more fun when you have a group of people together. And there's so much more that's just kind of left to fate, as far as breakdowns and like... Right. But that's, you know, I mean, you'll hear this said a million times by people who ride, you know, clap traps and death trap motorcycles, is that the best part about being on the road is...
fixing your shit?
Yeah, not only the breakdowns, because you get good stories from breakdowns, but the best stories come from the people you meet when the breakdowns happen, and the connections that you have to make, and what you have to do to get back on the road. And sometimes it's a challenge, but a lot of times you're just completely amazed at what comes out of the woodwork in nowhere. Like, I broke my frame in Oklahoma. My seat post broke in half, snapped clean through. And it was on a Sunday, so of course nothing's going to be open. And on top of that, I'm in Ashland, Kansas, which is the kind of town that doesn't even have a gas station. It's just got like a ranch pump that you go and like slide your credit card and punch some numbers into, and you fill your bike up. And, you know, I discover that my frame is broken. I feel the vibrations really crazy, and I'm like, what the hell is happening to my bike? And I look, and my seat post is cracked right here. And I called my buddy who I'm supposed to meet in Denver by the end of the night. That was like a 650-mile day that I had to do to meet my friend Warren in Denver that night. And I was like, dude, my seat post is broke. I'm going to see what I can do to get it fixed while I'm here. I may not make it to Denver tonight. As soon as I hung up the phone, I went, 2 blocks down, open volunteer fire department with a big ranch truck sitting next to it, which of course has a welder on it. So I find the welder inside, he stick welds it back together, and I'm like, great, gonna get to Denver. 35 miles later, snap, one more time. So I get into Dodge City and I ratchet strap the frame together, and at this point I'm just like, forget it, I'm going for it, Ratchet strapped the frame together and found out that as long as I kept it at a good, fast cruising highway speed, the vibration was not that brutal. And to condense the rest of the story, I rode until about 3:30 in the morning, made it to Denver, and the next day we went to a shop called Speed Metal, and they were actually one of the invited builders to the Born Free show, so it was all kind of, serendipity. They were in there working on their show bike, which is gorgeous, amazing, insane, like 40 over rigid front end pan head or whatever. And in the midst of that stress, of course, they were like, yeah, of course, come in, fix it. Didn't bother them at all that we basically rolled right under their workspace. And Warren, who's a much better welder than I am, TIG welded the frame back together. And Kendall, our another friend from up there in that area, who was there with us, Kendall and Warren fabbed up some motor mounts. Basically, all I had to do was clean up some metal, like clean some paint off of metal, and they did everything else. And Dave and Justin at Speed Metal were, just let us do it, which is kind of amazing. Again, that's not so unusual. It's not as unusual to meet other custom motorcycle people who understand being broken down on the side of the road and them letting you do something. But the fire department in Ashland, Kansas, they looked at me like, you are nuts. You're crazy, but I'll fix it, And so it was still a really good experience, but both sides of that experience. And the top motor mount and the weld held the rest of the way to California, even after Warren and I did about 35 miles of dirt road all together, we're looking at the map and going, we can cut across here, and it would be going over a mountain pass on a dirt road. And you get almost all the way up to the pass, and the road would just become impassable, like just
4-wheel drive.
Yeah,
territory.
4-wheel drive only road.
Yep.
The rocks are so big, like there's no way to bounce. You could have done it, but it just would have been inch after inch after inch, So we rolled back down the mountain. That was the same night we fixed the bike in Denver again. It was like 5 o'clock we left and headed for the mountains and got almost up to Mountain Pass. We'd already stopped for beer for camping. We were riding with, Warren was riding with beer in his lap. I think I put my beer, it might have been all the beer we got. I don't remember. There were only 2 of us. But Warren rode all the way up this mountain with beer in his lap. It was so funny. Dirt road and everything. That dude will do anything. He's so much fun to be on the road with. And he didn't even think twice about it. He's like, okay, beer, we're about to camp. Even if about to camp means like 120 more miles to camp. This is the last time we're going to see a grocery store.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing that I've learned is that I think there's a lot of information out there that we get bombarded with, which is meant to make us dislike other people and believe that other people are out to get us, and other people are out to take advantage of us. And in my experience, being in need on the road, year after year after year, I've found that I believe that's totally untrue now. come to believe that many more people are, you know, willing to help and not trying to take advantage of you. You know, like it does a lot. It does a lot for your ideology about other people. You know, if you go through any phase in your life where you think, you know, I mean, it's really easy to start to think, especially if you live in a city like Birmingham, where there's a lot of hate. And for example, you know, Ape Knuckles 2 days ago got taken out, T-boned a car that wasn't paying attention, and you just start to think that, you know, people are out for themselves and they don't really care about anyone else. And you know, and that sucks because that does happen a lot in the city. But once you get out of the city, you find out that that's not always the case. In fact, I feel like it's rarely the case. You could ask almost anybody in Middle America for help, and most likely get help. You know, right. People will do what they can for you, and that's just. I don't remember what Warren calls it, biker karma or road karma. I think he calls it road karma, you know, like, and it's the whole principle that if you see someone stuck on the side of the road, you stop for them, right. You know, just to make sure they're okay. And if you don't do that, it's bad road karma, you know.
You're next.
Yeah, you're next. Basically, that's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it. And you realize that even amongst your group of friends, everybody's into bikes for different reasons. Some people like to look at them. Some people really like to ride them. And you butt heads about it sometimes. You know, especially when it comes time to go to, you know, an event, and you really want to ride there, and you're willing to kind of work it out to take the time off. Now, everybody gives me a hard time because I'm a school teacher, and you know, in the summer I can do it. You know, there's no problem doing it, but
and everybody else has trouble.
Right, and everybody else has a hard time doing it. So I'm not faulting anybody for not being able to get time off work either. But on the flip side of that, you know, you spoke to Doug, Round the World Doug. But it really is. It's sort of, you know, I study child development. That's my profession. We talk about something called mental scaffolding, which is basically the world that you construct mentally, and the boundaries and restrictions and things like that you construct into your own world based on your own experiences. And so Doug's world is very much based on removing obstacles to doing what he wants to do. And a lot of other people think more in terms of the obstacles than they do removing the obstacles so they can do what they want to do. And Doug has set his life up in such a way that he can do these epic trips around the world, you know, and
all museum pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like, he's unbelievable. I could talk all day about how much respect I have for that guy.